So now for some identifying seventh chords, and we're going to start off with just root position. So it's going to look like that snowman plus a fourth note. I mean, so this whole first line will just do all of those seventh chords in root positions. We'll include our key signatures, maybe write out the letter names involved, and then we'll get on to some inversions. I'll show you how to do inversions on this line and identify a couple of seventh chords in inversion. So we'll be a little bit heavier this week on identifying rather than building them. I think it is important to learn how to build seventh chords eventually, but for our purposes, it might not be worth our time to be building tons of them. Probably more worth our time to be moving on to four-part writing and then adding some of these other types of seventh chords as we go, building them in that context rather than just in these exercises. So we're just going to do a few and then go from there. So we have our little cheat sheet up here. And the triad on the bottom is what you're going to want to start with, or at least that's the way I do it. If you find a different method, awesome, as long as it works. But look at the triad first and identify it like you might last week. And then look at the distance between these two to find out what kind of seventh it is. And the bottom note, of course, the root is the name of the chord. So in this case, this is an F sharp seventh chord of some kind. So we'll identify it one more week with the letter name and then this symbol over here that matches whatever kind of seventh chord it is. I mentioned this last week, but next week we'll be starting using Roman numerals instead of the letters, which I personally find a lot easier. But you know, it is what it is at this point, and we'll just identify it in the way that we know, which right now is letters. So we'll get to those diatonic chords next week with the Roman numerals. Okay, so this first one. Start with the letter names first. So we have F, A, C, and E. And if you look on your little building chords thing, you're going to see that F, A, C, E. And anyway, we'll go back to that another time. But you're going to see F, A, C, E in that order. Now let's go through the key signature, make sure none of these apply, and they do. This is actually an F sharp. This is actually a C sharp. And those are our final pitches. So on the bottom three on this triad, you'll find that it's, if you need to look back at your other cheat sheet, if you're still not super fast at your triads, this is a minor triad of some kind, okay? So all of this is minor, not of some kind, it is a minor triad. And now we want the distance between F sharp and E. Is that a major seventh or a minor seventh? And if you look back on your F sharp major scale from your other cheat sheet, you will find that you need an E sharp for this to be a major seventh, so it's actually a minor seventh. So we're looking for minor triad with minor seventh on our cheat sheets. So this is a minor seventh chord. Since the bottom note is an F sharp, this is an F sharp minor seventh. See if you can try the next one on your own. Let's do our letter names first. We have D, F, A, C. We can see an accidental here, so we know this is actually a C flat. We check our key signature. We know this has to be an A flat. Everything else seems good to go. Okay, so looking at our bottom three notes, D, F, A flat is a diminished triad. So looking back at our options here, it's either going to be a half diminished or a full diminished seventh chord. Our distance between D and C flat is in fact a diminished seventh. This is a fully diminished seventh chord. Our bottom note is D, so this is D diminished 7. Okay, now some of you have asked about this. This is one of those cases where you would say a diminished 7th even though it sounds like a major 6th. Okay, why? Because it's about the distance between the lines and the spaces. This is your D, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So this is a 7th chord. If it didn't have the flat, this would be a minor 7th. If it had a sharp, it would be a major 7th. And now that we're lowering it to a C flat, it's a diminished 7th. So you do have those options, but you have to be able to see it in context. It does in fact, though, sound like a major 6th. So that's why we often don't address it that way in class, because we're going by ear. Like, what does this sound like? It's a major 6. It's My Bonnie Lies Over the Ocean. So it's just a little bit more simple in our rehearsal context to not address it this way. But now you can see why you would when you're building 7th chords like this. Okay, so let's do the next one. Okay, so we have F, A, C, E. Didn't even mean to do that. I've got 2 sets. F, A, C, E. And these have some sharps to apply. We have E sharp, written in with the accidentals. With our key signature, we're going to need an F sharp and an A sharp, and oh boy, also a C sharp. Okay, so we analyze this triad on the bottom first, and we find that it's a major triad. So with our major triad and our major 7th, we have ourselves a major 7th chord. Our bottom note is F sharp, so this is an F sharp major 7th. So we have, since we didn't have a dominant 7th up here, which is the most common one, I went ahead and used a C dominant 7th on our inversions here. So essentially what we're going to do, we're going to do the same thing we did with triads. We'll take the bottom note and we'll move it up by an octave, and that will give us our first inversion. Then take the bottom note again, move it up by an octave, and so on and so forth. So your first inversion, you're going to keep these 3 notes. So we'll keep our E, G, B flat exactly where they were before, but we're going to take this C and move it up here to the next octave up. And they start looking a little clumpy. You put them together like this, just side by side. You'll get used to it as we go. And then we'll keep these 3 exactly where they are. For second inversion, we're going to take this 3rd and put it up on the top. Sorry, I should have put that over here. It kind of stacks up the same way that it did before, like that. Bad notation on my part. There we go. And then the final one, we're going to keep our B flat and our C, let's get that flat over there, and our E. Oh, we're gonna run into the stuff above. And we're gonna take this G and put it up here. Sorry, that got a little clumpy. My visuals are having problems this week. But this stuff, there we go. That is your 3rd inversion. Okay, you only have 3 instead of 2 like before because you got 4 notes, so you got 1 more option than you had initially. Other thing you're going to want to know is that figured bass symbol stuff that we talked about before. So with triads, you had a 6 or a 6/4 in superscript next to your chord. For 7th chord, so I'm clearly having issues with making this a little too messy. So I'm going to switch to some red pens here. I accidentally started the 7 over here. So sorry. Root position is 7 in that figured bass symbol. Your first inversion is going to be 6/5. Your second inversion is gonna be 4/3, so kind of in order, 6/5, 4/3, and then it's gonna break that for 3rd inversion and be 4/2. Okay, so those are the symbols that you're gonna see next to your 7th chord. So next week when we do Roman numeral style chords or diatonic chords, you might see something like, I'll just write it over here. You might see the Roman numeral 5. 5/7 is a really common chord and one that we're gonna start off with in our authentic cadences. If that 5 chord were in first inversion, you would see 5, 6, 5, like that, and so on and so forth. So you'd use those symbols with your Roman numerals to indicate what inversion those chords are in, those 7th chords. Okay, and you can always tell them apart from triads because, well, triads use different numbers. It would say 6/4 or 6, and none of those exist in your 7th chord. So. All right, so last thing on this page is that we're gonna start doing some inversions for identification. And I find that at the very beginning, it's actually easiest to take whatever 7th chord you have and find out what it would be in root position. So this is where it might actually be handy to start using this on your cheat sheet for the letter names. So I'll just show you what I mean by example. So this first one, just by letter names, not even worrying about accidentals, we have C, E, F, and A. Now, if you're looking at this table and you're looking for a row that has all four of those letter names, A, F, E, and C, you're gonna find that you actually have to be in this row, F, A, C, E. It's actually an F7 chord. It's just an inversion that has a C on the bottom, okay? So I'm gonna keep my C and my E from before. I'm gonna move this F down here. I'm gonna move this A right here. Okay, and I'm gonna try to keep all of these accidentals with their buddies. We've got C natural, we've got E flat. Okay, so now we're back in root position and this makes far more sense, yeah? So let's do our letter names. We've got F, A, regular old C, didn't have to worry about our key signature over here, and E flat. The key signature does change this though, an F sharp. Anything else? I think we got it all. Okay, so F sharp, A, and C all together, those make a diminished triad. F sharp to E flat make a diminished seventh. So diminished triad with a diminished seventh, we have a fully diminished seventh chord. So this very first chord is F sharp. I don't know why we have a lot of F sharps today. F sharp, fully diminished 7, like so. And all of these exercises that I've put, all of these chord identifications that I've put on the tablet today, I pulled directly off of musictheory.net in the same way that, that you would be practicing this week. So they're just the first ones that popped up. Okay, let's see if you can do the next one on your own. Okay, so first thing I hope you did is you're looking at letter names. Again, don't worry about the accidentals or the key signature, just the letter name so you can figure out what the root is. We have G, B, C, and E. If you look back on your cheat sheet, the only 7th chord that has those options is a C7 chord, in which case your root would be C, C, E, G, B, and you get back into that root position. So let's actually go up. Let's go C, E, G, B. There it is. So we're essentially taking these two and popping them up an octave. Okay, so now that we've got that in root position, let's see what we have in this chord. We have a C flat. We have an E flat. We have a G flat. And we have a B flat. They're all flats. So these bottom 3 notes, we have a major triad, and from C flat to B flat, we have a major 7th. So major triad, major 7th, that gives us a major 7th chord, not a dominant 7th chord, a major 7th chord on C flat. So this is a C flat, major 7 chord. Let's do the last one. Okay, we're going to assume there's no key signature here. So we have a C, a D, an F, and an A. When you look back at your chord cheat sheet, that would give you what? That would give you a D7 chord of some kind. D is your root. So let's keep those 3 exactly as they were, and let's pop this C up here. Let's carry over our key or our accidental from before. This was an F sharp. Okay, now let's go through our process. So we have D, F sharp, A, C, C natural. Your bottom 3 notes are a major triad. From a D to a C, is a minor seventh. Major triad, minor seventh, and you have a dominant seventh chord. D7. Now I want to clarify something, because as we were going through and moving everything to root position and identifying it, this is actually the name of our root position chord. If I were to name this chord with its inversion, you would see something other than the 7, right? You would see either a 6-5 or a 4-3 or a 4-2. So you have to figure out which inversion it's in. So here's how you do it. Here's your root. If this is on the bottom, you're in first inversion. If this is on the bottom, you're in second inversion. Looks like C is on the bottom. So we're in second inversion. Make sure you can see that. On second inversion, you would be using a 4-3. So this chord is technically F sharp diminished 4-3, like that. So this goes for here. This is the root position version. Okay, same thing with over here. This is the name of the root position one. If you want, this one's on G flat on the bottom. This is root position. This would be on the bottom in first inversion. This would be on the bottom in second inversion. And we do have a G flat on the bottom in second inversion. So this is actually C flat major. Second inversion is 4-3, 4-3. And the last one. So D7, that dominant seventh, applies to that one. But since this isn't an inversion, we go back, we look, C is on the bottom. This would be root position, first inversion, second inversion, third inversion. Third inversion has the seventh on the bottom, and that's what we see here. So this is third inversion, we're gonna need a 4-2. So this is actually that. And again, you probably aren't gonna see, most of the time these figured bass numbers, these 4-2, 4-3, are used with Roman numerals like this, not like this. So this is where things can get a little gray between like our world or theory world and like guitar world. If you showed this to a guitarist, I'm guessing very few would actually know what you're talking about. They'd just be looking for D7 or that particular chord shape. So, so just know that we're still working in a bit of a gray area here. Now, I gave you a lot of information, and if this as a whole with seventh chords is confusing to you, don't stress. I actually think that by next week when we're doing new things, that this stuff isn't gonna matter nearly as much. As long as you know what a seventh chord is, how they are built generally, and you can use this, this chord sheet cheat sheet to figure out what pitches are where. Pretty much all we're gonna be using in the next 6 weeks is that dominant seventh chord, right? So like this one, where it has the major triad on the bottom and a minor seventh on the top. And I can show you why that is the case next week when we talk about diatonic chords. But that's the one that you have to have a pretty good handle on. Major and minor seventh are coming in at a close second or third. You might see them, but probably not. So that's why this week we're gonna focus on identifying these chords, but we're not gonna take forever trying to build them. If you would like to try building seventh chords on musictheory.net, you can do that. There's exercises you can pop up for yourself, but it's not gonna be super necessary for our purposes in the next couple of weeks as we just kind of do a flyover of basic music theory at this level.